Imagine, if you will, a cage. But I don't want you to picture the standard, rusty iron bars or some locked dungeon door. That's too easy.
Right. It's too cliche.
It is. I want you to imagine a cage that looks like a palace. Imagine a cage that looks like a duty you were born into. Or maybe, even more terrifying, a cage that looks like the very skin you wear.
Oh, that is a terrifying thought. Because, I mean, usually when we think of imprisonment, we're thinking of external forces.
Exactly. Guards, walls.
Yeah, guards, walls, fences. But what happens when the lock is on the inside? What happens when the person keeping you trapped is, well...
You.
That's it. Imagine a world where the horizon is right there. I mean, ships are sailing out every single day. The wind is blowing. Birds are migrating. Freedom is technically just a ticket away.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't leave. Not because you're chained to a wall, but because you're chained to who you are. And because there are people in the shadows who have decided exactly how you're going to be used. And that's the headspace we are living in today for this deep dive. It's a heavy one, but it's fascinating. It really asks the question, how much of our identity is actually our own and how much is just manufactured by the people who need something from us?
It's the ultimate question of agency, really.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open a story that is equal parts high-stakes espionage and romantic fantasy. We were talking about Songbird of the Sorrows by Braidee Otto. And I have to say, looking at the source material you brought in, this is not your standard Knights and Dragons fan.
Oh, far from it. Not at all. This text, it blends genres in a way that feels really modern. You have all the high fantasy elements you'd expect. You've got gods, you've got magic, shattered worlds.
Kind of big stuff.
All the big stuff. But the tone is pure noir thriller. It's gritty. It's about spies and assassins and all the dirty, bloody work that keeps a kingdom running while the royals are, waving from the balcony.
It's almost like James Bond meets Greek mythology meets... Well, and this is the crazy part. It eventually meets The Bachelor. But we'll get to that absolutely wild twist later on.
We certainly will. And it's such a jarring shift in the narrative. But when you really start to analyze the political maneuvering underneath it all, it makes perfect, terrifying sense.
It does. So, okay, here's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the complex world of the Imperios. And just that name alone, Imperios, it sounds so grand, doesn't it? It implies something celestial.
It does. It evokes the sky, the heavens, which is so fitting for a book that is, and I mean this, absolutely obsessed with flight and wind and birds. The author rarely lets a single page go by without some kind of avian imagery.
Okay, so after that, we're going to analyze the brutal hierarchy of the aviary. And I have to say, the name the aviary sounds like a lovely place you'd visit on a Sunday afternoon to look at parakeets.
Yeah.
This is not that.
No. Not even close. This is a paramilitary spy network that weaponizes orphans. It is institutionalized trauma disguised as charity. It's a machine that takes in vulnerable, broken children and just spits out instruments of the state.
Chilling.
Yeah.
And then we're going to deconstruct the protagonist, Ayala. She's a princess living a double life as a spy. She has some serious family trauma, and she hoards shiny objects like a magpie, which is a fascinating character trait.
It really is.
And finally, we're going to look at the impossible, heart-wrenching choice she's forced to make at the end of this first section.
And just a quick housekeeping note on our source material before we really jump in. We are basing this entire analysis on the first 8 chapters of the book, plus all the extra stuff, the maps, the glossary, the front matter.
Yeah.
So we're really looking at the setup, the world building, and the inciting incident that kicks off the main plot.
And visually, I want you, our listener, to just picture this. Think ornate gold filigree bird motifs on everything. Clothing, architecture, jewelry, and then these maps of a world that looks like a shattered plate. It's a stunning but very broken aesthetic.
Broken is the operative word there. It really is. So let's start with the world itself, the Imperios. Because in this story, geography isn't just a backdrop. Geography is history. And in a lot of ways, geography is trauma.
Okay, let's dive into section 1, the world. Because looking at this map they provided in the front matter, it's chaotic. It doesn't look like a natural continent at all. It looks like someone dropped a puzzle on the floor and then just kicked the pieces apart.
Well, that's not far from the truth. It's not natural. The backstory we get in the text tells us about the God War, and this is absolutely foundational to understanding why everyone in this world is so miserable.
The good old days.
Yeah.
Before politics, or gods in this case, ruined everything.
Exactly. The realm used to be one single unified landmass, but then you had the Anemoi, the 4 wind gods. You have Boreas, Eurus, Nodos, and Zephyrus.
The 4 winds.
The 4 winds. And as gods tend to do in pretty much every mythology, they got into a massive world-breaking fight.
What were they fighting over? Was it resources, land, or was it just pure ego?
Precedents, bloodlines, ego, yeah. It's the classic divine struggle for supremacy. The text says the war was so violent, so catastrophic, that it literally tore the land apart. This wasn't just a political split, this was a geological cataclysm.
So not a metaphor.
Not a metaphor at all. I mean, imagine an earthquake that just never stops until the continents themselves are shoved apart.
And that left a physical mark on the map, you see.
A huge one. There's a body of water called the Cerathros, and the book describes it as a scar from the war. It's what divides the kingdoms now. So every single time someone looks at a map or sails a ship, they are navigating the wreckage of this divine temper tantrum.
Wow.
It's a constant reminder that the gods are powerful, but they are not necessarily benevolent. They can break the world on a whim.
It really sets this tone that the people are just living in the ruins of something that was once greater. Okay, so out of this wreckage, we get the four kingdoms. And they're seasonal, which I think is just such a cool concept for world building.
It is. It gives each location such a distinct flavor.
Totally.
Each kingdom corresponds to one of those gods in a season. So let's break them down, because the environment really dictates the culture.
Okay.
In the north, you have Arcadia. This is the winter kingdom. They worship Boreas. It's all mountains, snow. It's cold. You can just imagine the people there are hardened. They're practical.
Right. Survival is a daily task.
Exactly. It sounds like the kind of place where you don't complain about the cold because the cold is God. Then you move east.
Okay. To the east we have
Eritrea. This is the autumn kingdom. They worship Eurus. It's described as a plentiful land. So think harvest colors, abundance, endless fields of grain. And it's really important to note for our plot, Eritrea is currently the bad guy. They are the antagonist nation.
Which is interesting because usually autumn and harvest sound so cozy. You know, pumpkin spice lattes and sweaters.
Right.
But here, they're the aggressors. Why is that?
Well, because wealth breeds ambition. If you have the most food, the most resources, you start to wonder why you don't also have the most land. Eritrea has the resources to fuel a massive war machine.
That makes total sense. Okay, then the west.
In the west, you get Raveza, that's spring. They worship Zephyrus. The text describes it as blossoming and sunny. It generally seems like the place you'd want to go on vacation.
Yeah, the tourist destination of the Imperios.
Totally. It feels like a land of perpetual renewal.
Actually?
And then finally, we come to the south, the primary setting of our story.
The Sorrows.
The Sorrows. It worships Notos, the summer god. But unlike the other three kingdoms, which seem to be these large, coherent land masses, the Sorrows is an archipelago. It's made up of 64 scattered isles and islands.
64? I mean, that's a logistical nightmare for a government. How do you even begin to police that many islands?
You barely do. It's isolated by the solar ice sea. It's got this dry heat, turquoise waters. It sounds beautiful, you know, very Mediterranean, but the name, the Sorrows, implies this deep underlying melancholy.
Well, yeah. It sounds like they got the short end of the stick in the God War.
They did. They're the land that suffered most from the separation. While the other lands got these huge continents, the South got shattered into 100 tiny pieces.
And that isolation has to be key to their culture, right?
All right.
If you're 64 islands cut off from the powerful mainlands, you develop this kind of fortress mentality. You feel like the world is against you.
Exactly. The Sorrows feels vulnerable. They're physically smaller. They're spread out, harder to defend, which is precisely why the aviary exists.
Oh, okay.
They know they can't win a brute force war against a giant like Eritrea, so they have to win the war of intelligence instead. But before we get to the spies, we have to talk about the magic. Because the magic system here is, well, it's one of the most fundamentally unfair systems I have encountered in fantasy recently.
It is incredibly unfair. I mean, it's basically a tale of haves and have-nots. But on a biological level, it takes the class struggle and makes it literally genetic.
Correct. You've got two main types of magic. First, there's Thekos. This is royal magic. It runs through the bloodlines of the monarchs.
The blue bloods.
The blue bloods. It grants them control over the seasons and the elements. It's inherent, and as far as we can tell, it comes without any physical cost to the user.
So it's the divine right of kings made literal. If you're royal, you get superpowers. No receipt attached. You're born with the silver spoon and the flamethrower.
Precisely. And Adela, our protagonist, she's of the Soteria bloodline, the royal line of the Sorrows. So technically, she should have an affinity for summer, for fire, for heat, for the sun.
But she doesn't.
She explicitly notes that the sun's flame has never sung to her. She feels absolutely no connection to it.
Which is this huge source of shame for her, right? She feels like a failure as a princess.
Yeah.
It's imposter syndrome, but magnified by 1,000 because it's tied to her magic. She looks at her hands and expects fire and just gets nothing.
And that lack of connection, it just fuels her sense of alienation from her father, the king,
Ooh.
who presumably wields this power with ease. It's another wall between them. But then let's look at the other side of the coin, the commoners, the Taikaroi.
Okay, let's talk about them.
The word Taikaroi apparently means the fortunate ones. They're the common race of the Imperios. And they're long-lived, we're talking centuries, and they all have what's called soul magic.
Fortunate seems like a deeply sarcastic name, given the cost we see later.
It feels like a cool joke, it really does, because to use their magic, they have to use something called goiti-ai.
What are those?
They're symbols, like runes, that they have to carve into objects, or even their own skin using a special tool called a graver. But the fuel for this magic, it isn't mana or stamina or some potion.
It's life.
It's life. It's your life. The text explains that using goitea drains your life force. If you use it too much, you die young. Or you age with terrifying speed. You are literally spending your time on Earth to buy a magical effect.
We get such a visceral example of this in Chapter 3. Aela visits a shopkeeper named Skipo.
Yes. This scene really stuck with me because it illustrates the brutal economics of this magic. Skipo runs a shop called a gravery. He carves these magical symbols for people, and he says he's almost 5 centuries old, which is apparently normal for a Taikaroi. But Aela notes that he looks ancient, like he looks like dust. His skin is papery, his movements are slow.
And why? Because he's been carving luck bracelets for tourists.
For anyone who will pay, he is literally selling pieces of his own lifespan so that someone else can have a lucky charm on their wrist. He's trading centuries of his life for a handful of coins.
God, think about the desperation required to make that choice. You're selling your tomorrows just so you can eat today.
And Ayla is just disgusted by it. The text says she sees it as the selling of souls.
It tells us so much about her character, though. She sees the deep injustice in it. She sees that magic, for the common people, is a transaction of life and death. It's an economy built on suffering. The rich get magic for free. The poor have to bleed for it.
It really, really raises the stakes. Magic isn't whimsical here. It's a heavy, heavy choice. You know, if you want to light a fire with magic, you might lose a week of your life. Is it worth it? Probably not.
And this creates a society where the poor are physically depleted by their service to the rich.
Yeah.
It's a very sharp social commentary woven right into the fantasy elements.
Absolutely. And speaking of races, the glossary mentions a few others that populate this world, which creates this really diverse ecosystem.
Okay, what else do we have?
We have the Nymphi, who are hybrids of nymphs and Taikaroi. We actually meet a character named Kashtan at a club later on, and he has these sapphire scales and an affinity for water.
That's a very cool visual.
And then there are the Harperi, a mythical avian race.
Of course, birds again.
Again, the bird motif is relentless. It's everywhere. Everything comes back to the sky. The gods are wind gods, the spies are birds, the mythical races are avian. It just constantly reinforces that theme of freedom versus captivity. Everyone wants to fly, but gravity and politics keeps pulling them down.
Which is the perfect transition to the organization that dominates Ayla's life. The organization that personally clipped her wings. The aviary.
The aviary. Now, to the average citizen walking the streets of the Sorrows, what is the aviary?
It's a PR masterpiece, honestly. The public face is that it's an orphanage. It's an institute funded by the crown for displaced children. It's, oh, look how benevolent we are, taking in the strays.
Yeah, look at our wonderful charity work.
It sounds like something you'd donate to at a fancy gala.
Exactly, it's a front. The true purpose, known only to the insiders, is that it is a spy and assassin network. It was established by Ael's great-grandfather a long time ago.
What was the logic there? We need spies, so let's use the kids.
It just seems incredibly dark from the outset. The logic was survival. Pure and simple. The world was shattered. The Sorrows were isolated and vulnerable. The king at the time believed that for the islands to prosper, they needed an advantage. And that advantage was knowledge, information.
So if you can't overpower your enemies with armies,
You outsmart them with secrets.
so they take these orphans who have no one else in the world and they mold them into weapons. It's classic indoctrination. They take the people who are invisible to society and make them literally invisible spies.
They prey on the vulnerability of these children. If you give a starving child bread and a purpose, they will give you their absolute loyalty. And they structure the whole thing like a flock of birds to create this twisted sense of belonging.
Let's run through the ranks because the bird theme is, as you said, aggressive here.
It is. At the very top, you have the eagle.
Lord Amon Malice.
Lord Amon Malice. He is the leader of the aviary and, crucially, the advisor to the crown.
So he's the puppet master. He has the king's ear and he holds all the king's secrets. He's the guy you do not want to meet in a dark alley, or a well-lit office for that matter.
Absolutely. He just exudes control. Then, just below him, you have the owls.
The wise ones.
The knowledge keepers, the archivists. They act as the advisory council. Then, the nightwings.
Great name for a band, even better name for assassins.
And that's exactly what they are. They're the lethal arm of the order. They handle the wet work, as they say.
And below them?
Songbirds. These are the spies, the scouts. Their job is to sing, to report information back. They are the eyes and the ears of the organization.
And at the very bottom of the food chain.
The fledglings, the trainees, the students. This is where Ella is at the very start of the book.
And let's talk about the schooling here. This is not Hogwarts. This is brutal. This isn't learning Wingardium Leviosa. This is learning how to not die.
It is abuse. It's systemic abuse designed to break the will and remold it. Chapter 1 opens with Ayla taking her final test. And she's not sitting at a desk with a piece of paper. She is scaling the side of one of the tallest towers in the Sorrows.
Describe that scene because the text makes it feel incredibly precarious. My palms were sweating reading it.
It's intense. She's clinging to this white stone, the sun is setting, and the text mentions that the white walls reflect the light so intensely that it blinds anyone looking up from the ground.
So she's using that as camouflage.
She's using that blindness as camouflage. Her fingers are bleeding, her muscles are screaming. The physical toll is immense.
And she had a shopping list.
She does, a theft list.
Yeah.
She has to steal 3 very specific items to prove her skill. First, a quill from the Eagle's own office.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Stealing from the boss.
Then a throwing knife from the weapon master. And finally, a religious pendant from the high priest.
The high priest, I mean, that feels so sacrilegious.
It shows her level of observation, her skill. She notes that the high priest only ever takes the pendant off when he's in the bathhouse. So she had to stalk the high priest, learn his bathing schedule, and sneak in to steal it.
It's so invasive. It shows that there are absolutely no boundaries for the aviary. Privacy does not exist.
Yeah.
Even your faith doesn't protect you from their eyes.
None whatsoever. And the punishment for failure, or just for existing sometimes, is severe. Ayla has these flashbacks. She recalls being caned. She recalls being starved for days. She mentions these things called gortia cuffs that are enchanted to burn the skin.
So they literally torture these kids into compliance. It's horribly effective, I'm sure, but it just destroys the soul.
It does. And they enforce this brutal system with 2 simple rules. The first rule is ask no questions.
Which is so ironic for a spy network. Aren't spies supposed to ask questions?
They're supposed to find answers for the Eagle, not ask questions of the Eagle. It's about total, unquestioning submission. You are a tool, not a thinker. You're a lens for the Eagle to see through, not an eye that sees for itself.
And the other big rule, the one that really drives the emotional conflict of the entire book.
Love no one.
Why? Why is that so important to them? It feels so extreme.
Because love shifts your allegiance. It's a simple calculation for them. If you love someone, your loyalty is divided. If you have a lover, a child, a best friend, you might hesitate on a mission. You might choose to save them instead of completing your objective.
So the aviary needs you to be hollowed out.
Completely, so they can fill you with their purpose. It is the ultimate dehumanization. They want robots made of flesh. Which brings us right to Ella, because she is definitely not hollow. She is overflowing with feelings she's trying desperately to hide.
Ayla, or I guess her code name becomes Starling, is a fascinating protagonist because she's living these 2 lives and she seems to hate both of them in different ways. She's trapped in a hall of mirrors and she can't find her own reflection.
That's a great way to put it. Let's unpack that duality.
Okay.
On one side, she is Princess Ayla, daughter of the King of the Sorrows. The public, what little they hear of her, thinks she's away on some spiritual retreat on the Isle of the Winds.
What a convenient cover story.
Yeah.
Ah, the princess is just off praying.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, she's learning how to pick locks and snap a man's neck.
Very convenient. And then on the other side, she is Elle, the fledgling spy, the anonymous orphan.
So how did she get there? Was she kidnapped? Did she run away from the palace?
No. And this is the part that is so heartbreaking. She was handed over to the aviary by her own father when she was just a child. She wasn't taken, she was given away.
Oh, man, that is the core trauma right there.
Yeah.
Dad didn't want me. That has to mess you up on a fundamental level.
Completely. She believes he blames her for her mother's death.
How so?
Her mother died in childbirth, and the text reveals she died using a huge amount of soul magic to save Ella's life.
So Ayla's birth directly caused her mother's death.
Yes. So every time the king looks at her, he sees the reason his wife is dead. He sees the price he had to pay.
So he sends her to the spy dungeon. Great parenting.
Yeah.
I can't bear to look at you, so go become an assassin.
It has left her with these severe, deep-seated abandonment issues. She feels utterly unwanted, and we see this manifest in her behavior. She hoards things.
Right, the text mentions she keeps these little jars of things. She hoards drachma, the local currency.
It's a classic trauma response. When you have no stability, when you've been stripped of your home and your identity, you try to create a sense of stability by accumulating stuff. This is mine. You can't take this away from me.
She's trying to build a nest.
It's a very bird-like behavior,
Yeah.
fittingly enough, yes.
She's also clearly struggling to cope in other ways. She visits Skipo, the guy who sells his life force, to buy somniseed.
Which is a narcotic. She takes it just to be able to sleep. She is self-medicating to shut off her brain, to stop the noise and the nightmares. She's essentially a functional addict.
She's so rebellious, too. Climbing towers, breaking rules.
But internally, she's just hurting. She's trying to numb the pain of being rejected by her father and simultaneously tortured by her masters. It's an impossible position to be in.
But she has this really cool visual way of switching between her two identities. The earring.
The Goitia earring. This is such a great piece of magic. It's simple, but effective. When she puts it on, her royal ash blonde hair turns to a common brown. Her eye color changes. It's a magical mask.
And she says when she takes it off, it feels like cobwebs falling from her skin.
That line really struck me. It shows just how much the disguise feels like a trap, like something suffocating. She wants to be seen, but she has to hide to survive. She hates the princess face because it reminds her of her father's rejection, but she hates the spy face because it's a lie. She doesn't even know what her true face feels like anymore.
And the only person who really sees her, who sees both sides, is Callias, the prince, her brother.
Their relationship is the emotional heartbeat of these first few chapters. In a world with the rule, love no one, she loves him fiercely and without question.
We see that scene where she sneaks into the palace gardens just to meet with him, which is insanely risky, if the eagle found out about that.
Oh, it would be bad. Very bad. But they do it anyway. They have this unbreakable bond. Callias is her link to her own humanity. He's the only one who knows she's both the princess and the spy, and he treats her like his sister, not like a tool or a ghost.
And they're co-conspirators. The text mentions a flashback where they broke into their father's study when they were kids. They're a team.
They are. And in the present, Callias is the one who's trying to warn her. He tells her the king is acting strangely, he's being secretive, he's meeting with the eagle constantly. Callias feels like a storm is coming.
He uses that great line. He says the tension in the palace is like a serpent coiled and waiting to strike.
Great imagery. It sets up this idea that the primary threat isn't just external from Eretria, it's inside the palace walls. The rot is coming from the head.
Okay, so let's talk about the other key players in Ayla's life. Because for someone who's supposed to be a loner, she has a squad. She has people she cares about, which, in her world, makes her incredibly vulnerable.
She does. First, and most importantly, there is Nissa, codenamed Sparrow,
Her best friend.
her foil. Ayla is brooding and internal and carries the weight of the world. Nissa is described as Maelstrom. She is chaotic, fun, loyal, loud. She's the girl who would laugh at a funeral. She brings a spark of light into the constant darkness of the aviary.
And Ayla says she would move the sun and moon for her.
That line is so crucial because it tells us that Nissa is Ayla's Achilles heel. She is her greatest vulnerability. And you can be sure that the eagle, Lord Malice, knows this. He's been watching that friendship very, very closely.
In a spy network, a best friend is just a hostage in waiting.
Precisely.
And then, okay, we have to talk about the brooding guy in the corner. Raven.
The love interest, a member of Alpha Flight, which is the aviary's elite team.
He's been gone on a mission for a whole year. And the moment he walks back into the room,
The air just leaves the room. You can feel the tension. There's clearly a history there. The text describes it as a former friends to lovers dynamic that was cut off abruptly.
Because of the rules, love no one.
Exactly. They realized they were getting too close, that their feelings were becoming a liability, and they stopped it. They crushed the flower before it could fully bloom. They prioritized the mission over their hearts, or at least they tried to.
But there is a scene in Chapter 6 that totally changes how we see Raven. Because up until that point, he's just a cool, older spy guy.
Yeah.
He seems almost robotic, very detached.
The scene at Iowa. This is essential reading to understand his character. Raven takes Ayla to this small, quiet island. He takes her to a little house owned by a woman named Areti.
And what do we find there? It's not a weapons cache. It's not a secret safe house.
It's orphans, 5 little boys. And Areti, who we find out is Raven's foster mother. She found him washed up on a beach years and years ago and raised him.
And Raven, the stoic assassin, is on the floor playing with these kids.
He's being tackled by 5-year-olds. He's telling them stories. He's laughing. And it just breaks Ayla's brain a little bit. She has never, ever seen this side of him. She realizes he isn't cold. He's just intensely protective.
It shows us that Raven isn't fighting for the eagle. He's not fighting for an abstract concept of the kingdom. He's fighting for them.
Yes. He tells Ayla, I want you to remember why we do what we do. It's a plea. He's saying, don't let this place turn you into a monster. Remember the actual people we are protecting. It gives the whole story a moral center.
It shows that he has found a way to serve the mission without losing his soul. He's fighting for the future of those boys.
And it makes the romance so much more tragic because you see what a good man he is, what a good father he would be. But he's not allowed to have that life. He can visit that life for an afternoon, but he can't stay.
Yeah, it really elevates their relationship from just workplace flirtation to this deep, shared understanding of what's at stake. They both want to protect the innocent, even if they have to do guilty things to achieve it.
Totally. Okay, one more character we absolutely need to mention. Calliope, the muse.
The owner of the pleasure house, the muse, where all the spies seem to hang out.
She's very mysterious. The text strongly hints that she has sight, that she's an oracle.
Right. She gives Ayla this really cryptic warning.
She does. She tells Ayla she has seen nothing good in her future and that she'll be leaving soon.
Super ominous.
Very. And her club, the Muse, it uses one-way mirrors for spying, which again just reinforces that constant theme. You are always being watched. Even in a place of pleasure and supposed escape, the eyes are on you. Knowledge is the currency in the Sorrows, and Calliope is a very, very rich woman.
Okay, let's get to the big event of this first section. Section 5. The naming ceremony.
Okay.
This is graduation day for the fledglings. This is what they've all been working and bleeding for.
This is where the fledglings become songbirds. It takes place in this grand ceremonial hall. There's the Book of Names and the Eagle's Kylix, a ceremonial cup.
And this is not a champagne toast.
No, this is not a celebration. This is the final test. They have to drink from the cup. It's a test of worthiness, of strength. And we see exactly what happens if you fail.
Poor Luce.
Yeah. A character named Lucy, one of the other fledglings, she steps up and drinks from the cup. And instantly, she just dies.
And it's described so vividly in the text. She claws at her throat, her eyes go wide, she collapses. It's horrific.
But the truly horrifying part is Mollis, the eagle. He watches a child die right in front of him, and his only reaction is to say, such a shame, continue.
That chilled me to the bone. Continue. Step over the body and take your vow.
It establishes Mollis as a true, irredeemable villain. He views these kids as completely disposable assets. If a tool breaks, you toss it aside and pick up the next one. It raises the stakes for Ayla instantly. Failure isn't just expulsion, it's death. The cup is a litmus test for survival, and some people just aren't meant to survive in his world.
But Ayla does. She survives. She drinks from the cup. She feels this powerful magic trying to probe her secrets, but she withstands it.
She becomes Starling. Nissa becomes Sparrow. Her friend Mateo becomes Petrel. They get their bird names. They are officially part of the flock now.
And now that they're official songbirds, they get their very first mission. And oh boy, does the plot thicken here.
Section 6. The mission to Eritrea. Malice calls the new team Ayla, Nissa, Raven, and another spy named Lark into his office.
And he lays it all out. He tells them that the king of Eritrea, this guy King Daedalus, has a weapon.
A weapon so lethal, he claims, it could end the world. And Daedalus is an imperialist. He wants to conquer all the other kingdoms and reunite the Imperios under his rule. He wants to finish what the God War started.
So the mission is pretty straightforward at first. Infiltrate the Eritrean court and steal or destroy the weapon, standard spy stuff.
Right.
But then Malice drops the other shoe, the big one.
The twist. Ayla isn't going as Starling the spy. She is going as Princess Ayla.
She has to resume her original identity. She has to go to Eritrea and enter a competition.
The royal trials.
Yeah.
It's a competition where noble ladies from all the kingdoms compete to become the bride of the Eritrean prince.
So she has to go on The Bachelor, win the prince's heart, and become a spy on the Eritrean throne.
It's a genius plan, strategically. It's insane, but it's genius. But Ayla is horrified. This is her worst nightmare. She doesn't want to be a princess. She doesn't want to get married. She hates everything about the royals and their games.
So why does she agree? I mean, she could refuse. She could try to run.
The ultimatum. This is where Malice shows his true diabolical colors. He isn't asking her, he's telling her. He looks at Ayla, then looks at Nissa, and he says, I will allow her to stay there with you. You will need a handmaiden or two.
Oh, God. He's holding a gun to Nissa's head.
He's saying, succeed, or your best friend pays the price. He's making Nissa her official handmaid. He's putting her right in the line of fire. Ayla realizes in that single moment that Nissa is the cage. Malice has allowed their friendship to grow and flourish for years, just so he could use it as leverage at this exact moment.
That is just diabolical.
He let them love each other so he could use that love as a weapon against them.
It shifts Ayla's motivation completely. She isn't going to Eritrea to save the world or serve her kingdom anymore. She's going to save Nissa.
It's personal now. Deeply personal.
It's such a compelling setup for the rest of the book. So, okay, as we wrap up this deep dive on these first 8 chapters, what are the big themes we should really be taking away?
For me, the number one theme is identity. Ayla has spent her entire life running from the princess identity, trying to be this hardened spy, Elle, but now she realizes that the only way to succeed is to embrace the mask she hates. The princess is the ultimate disguise. She has to become the thing she despises to save the person she loves.
And the cost of magic, for sure. We see it with the poor, like Skipo, literally selling their lives for a few coins, and we see it with the royals selling their freedom and their children for power. Magic isn't a gift in this world. It is a burden. It's a transaction that always leaves you poor in some way.
And finally, the theme of trust. Who can you trust? Ayla is surrounded by liars and manipulators, even the people she loves, Raven, Kalias. They have their own secrets or divided loyalties. She is walking into a viper's nest, and she has no idea who has the antidote.
Which leaves me with this final thought for you, our listeners. We know Eritrea has a weapon. Melissa's terrified of it. But we have no idea what it is. Is it a bomb? Is it some ancient spell? Or what if it's a person?
In a world like this, a person is often the most dangerous weapon of all, especially a person who feels they have nothing left to lose.
Ooh, I like that. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Songbird of the Sorrows. We'll catch you on the next flight.
May your flight be long.